Back for the second night of the back-to-back, coming off a win. Always feels much better. Welcome to the PHLY Sixers pregame show, live from the Xfinity studio, along with Rich. I'm Devin Booker here, the president of basketball operations, all of you. And we are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. We'll give our picks a little bit later at the end of the show. Certainly talk about the X Factors and the Phoenix Suns as a surprising team. The starters as well a little bit later. And we'll get into the Sixers offense with Joel Embiid out tonight as expected. Waiting on Paul George as a questionable determination.
We're not waiting.
No longer waiting on Paul George with Joel Embiid out. The Sixers offense with both him on the floor and with him off the floor. We'll give a graphic with that a little bit later. We'll talk about the offense in general. But first, Rich, both teams coming off wins on Monday night. Second night of a back-to-back for both teams. The Suns taking on the Brooklyn Nets with the win in Brooklyn. The Sixers, though, most importantly, ending their two-game losing streak, getting a very good win over the 10-win Indiana Pacers. That's a team that we know is much better than that, but because of injuries and so on, the record won't show that this year. That said, good win for the Sixers. They are the ones that needed the win. They got it. Tyrese Maxey named an all-star starter for the first time in his career, second time giving the honor of an all-star in his career in his 6 years. He comes out and he gives you a 29, 8-8 performance, which was fantastic as a two-way player. Embiid drops his 30. All five starters score in double figures. They just simply handled their business as they should have against that team last night. So now we get into this one and we look at where they are at right now with an opportunity, with some help from some other games, for them to protect their home like we've been talking about. They are now sitting there at 500 at home, back at 500. It's a ridiculous record, but this is where we are. But here we are on this back-to-back. What do you want to see from them as they get ready to start things off tonight? By the way, we'll get to Kyle's video after the break as well. But there's always that mental hurdle of the back-to-back and how you fight through, both teams dealing with it. One had to travel, one did not. But you also don't want to get complacent just because you won a basketball game last night in regards to the Sixers. So what are you looking for as we start things off?
So, Devon, I would like the Sixers to push the pace because, newsflash, Paul George not playing in tonight's game. So we're back to the first week of the season when the Sixers are going to play a lot of their guards. They're going to play Drummond. They're going to play Bona in tonight's game against a hard-playing Phoenix Suns team. And one thing I'd like to see from the Sixers is something that we saw last night, and that is continuing to force turnovers. And so I looked at some of the numbers from, Thanksgiving on. And Bree, I think we have that graphic of how the Sixers have defended over that time. Thank you, Bree. Since Thanksgiving, Devon, it's a third of a season. I know I'm cherry picking a little bit, but that's 24 games. That's a lot. They are third in the NBA in defense over that time frame, and they are turning people over on 16.3% of their possessions. That is fourth in the NBA. And it's an interesting formula. The only two teams I looked up in the NBA that are better on defense than the Sixers during that time are the two teams that are the best defensive teams in the NBA. That is the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Detroit Pistons. But they do it kind of in a similar fashion as the Sixers, in that they force a ton of turnovers. They also foul people a ton. That's the little bit of the give and take. You play aggressive defense, you're going to foul a little bit. But they hold teams to a low field goal percentage. And the difference between the Sixers and those teams, the Sixers are a really poor rebounding team during that stretch. I think most people that watch them on a night in, night out basis, I'm pulling my hair out sometimes at some of the offensive rebounds that they give up. That's the difference. But the overall package, number 3 in defense. And as we talked about last night, Tyrese Maxey is leading the charge on that end. And Bree has the clips from our friend Sixers Adam, his 8 steals last night. Devon, what impresses me is the different ways that Maxey gets steals, right? That's an on-ball one. Here is one where TJ McConnell, who is a very good ball handler, turns his back, and Tyrese Maxey just sees it. He reads the guy from the corner. He's going the other way for a bucket. And as we keep going on here, we see on-ball steals, we see off-ball steals. It's a really nice mix of defensive playmaking. There's one that I believe coming up next that is the Matisse Thybulle steal, where he's sort of cherry-picking in the backcourt, and Aaron Nesmith, after this Joel Embiid missed jumper, throws a lazy pass. Here's Tyrese Maxey. Oh, lazy pass. going the other way for a bucket. Here's one, blowing up a dribble handoff. That's great defense on that one. And then this is my favorite one. Jay Huff, he's a guy, he draws two here. He makes the right pass to the open man, and Tyrese Maxey steps in front of that because he's reading the play. We talked about that last night, where even when Jay Huff is making the right play there, draw two, pass it to the open man, Tyrese Maxey is seeing that play before Jay Huff is even seeing it, getting in the passing lane and creating offense for him and the Sixers. So it's been a really nice formula for the Sixers, generating a bunch of steals, and Tyrese Maxey the last two nights with 13 steals. That's a huge part of it, and hopefully we see more of it tonight against Phoenix.
Yeah, they're going to need it because this Phoenix team, as we'll talk about a little bit more, is a surprising team. They've been dynamic. They have some really good guard play led by, of course, all-star Devin Booker. But the defense has been something that we've talked about, even though we've gotten on them for their defense and what they are not doing, obviously, on the defensive end. We talked about at one point where they were fifth in the NBA with what they were doing defensively overall. And you're starting to see the fruits of that with the steals, with the opportunities for them to really disrupt teams and force those turnovers. It may not always result in the pick sixes like we see with Maxey here, but the extra opportunities in field goals, where we have also pointed out there have been those games, folks, where there's been a big discrepancy where the Sixers are like a -10 in terms of field goal attempts to the other team. But when they do turn the opponent over, that gives them those extra opportunities. So as good as Embiid and Maxey are in their two-man game, as good as they are individually, Edgecombe, George have their individual performances and their stretches as well. The defense turning into offense is a big deal for this particular basketball team. As you mentioned, it's the same thing for OKC. When we watched that OKC run last year, and even when they got off to the undefeated start before they finally lost a basketball game, I remember that first game of the season when they played on national TV after they got their rings, and they were just suffocating out there on the floor. And we were wondering, man, why don't we see that from a lot of teams, including the Sixers, when we see the way that OKC plays basketball? It's often talk about the offense, but when you see a defensive team that is able to create havoc, force those turnovers, that makes the next guy want to play that much harder, where he is able to get those steals, gets his hands in those passing lanes, and find a way to turn that basketball over. So that's the fun of it. And watching this basketball team right now, they can be very frustrating. They do give up a lot of points in the paint, they certainly give up a lot of points in transition themselves. But when they do create those turnovers, this is a different basketball team, minus what you see from Embiid and Maxey specifically. But as a group, forcing those turnovers, getting out there in the open floor, this is something that they do pretty darn well under Nick Nurse, as you mentioned last night with the Raptors comparison.
The issue, Devon, for tonight's game, look, if Joel wasn't going to play, I still think you can build a pretty good defense. When you look on the season, Sixers defense been about the same, a little bit better with Joel in the game. But as we see, he has his limitations on that end. I think overall he's a more impactful player on offense, which we'll get into in the next segment. But you have Bona out there. Drummond can make some plays with his hands as well. A big key to the defense, with the help defense that we always talk about, is Paul George. I was really looking forward to him playing tonight. It's like, okay, Paul, the hope would have been you sit Paul last night because, hey, we're going to play Joel last night. He's going to score his 30 against Indiana, and then Paul is going to bring the energy in tonight's game. Well, Paul's not playing that night. So,
yeah, a little disappointed.
So they're going to have to make it work with worse defensive personnel. Good thing they still have Oubre, which is better at this point. But yeah, that's disappointing. The PG's out for sure.
Yeah, so a much bigger challenge here tonight for the Sixers. But are they capable of winning these games? Look, 41 games into the season already, and they're sitting here with a 23-18 record. Again, as we've talked about mostly on the show, I'll take it. So they've surprised us with a lot of performances. Can they manufacture another one tonight, shorthanded, without those two guys?
We hit the halfway point exactly, and we didn't even acknowledge it last night. I don't even have to do the math on what the. I mean, I do have to do the math. You multiply it by 2, but they are currently on a 46-win pace. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. So
it's kind of like where we had them all. Where we said between like 42 and 46 at the start of the season.
And my hope for them all year was, okay, they're going to be a little bit slow to start. We don't know anything what we're going to get from Embiid. Paul George is going to be out to start the year. We have no idea what VJ Edgecombe is going to give them. My hope was, okay, be able to tread water, frankly, a worse record for the first 41 games. Now, part of the reason they do have a better record is a lot of those things turned out well, where Maxey took another leap, VJ is a contributor right away, and Joel is better than I expected him to be. My thought the whole year was they would go on a run in late February and March, especially once a bunch of teams, not the Sixers, not us this year, nobody wearing the tank helmets this year for us, but some other markets wear the helmets because, man, have you seen Darren Peterson and DeBonsa and Boozer? There's some good players at the top of this draft.
Too,
yeah, good players at the top of this draft. My hope was they would make a run in the second half of the year once they figured out sort of all their injuries, the right combinations, as some teams sort of tail off, which happens every year in the NBA in March. There are just some teams that let go of the rope for tanking or development reasons or whatever. They're in a good position, right?
Yes,
I think the goal right here, 46 win pace right now. I'm setting the goal at 50 wins. I think they can do it. I think the schedule will be a little bit easier on them.
Okay.
I mean, again, if they end up with 48 to
I'm thrilled.
48, I'd be thrilled. But I think that they can actually set 50 wins as a pace. Now, am I expecting them to do that easily? No, we watch them every night. They're extremely up and down, not only on a night-by-night basis, but within games as well. But I think you can set that as a goal to shoot for. Maybe it's a little bit too high. We'll see.
And look, again, last night after their win and a couple of losses for the Toronto Raptors, New York Knicks, Boston Celtics, and the Cleveland Cavaliers, after we signed off, the Miami Heat also lost, so they're 2 games back of the Sixers. They are currently 5th in the Eastern Conference, half game back of 4th with the Toronto Raptors securing that spot. They take on the Golden State Warriors. Tough news with Jimmy Butler in the ACL last night, but Toronto still has to go to Golden State, so you root for the Warriors there. And the Orlando Magic are off tonight. Nobody else of significance. Miami plays back-to-back against the Sacramento Kings. We'll see how it goes. But for your Sixers, handle your business, and you really don't have to worry about what the others are doing. All right, we're going to take our break here on the pregame show. When we come back, we'll hear from Kyle Newbeck from the arena. We'll also talk about the Sixers offense. We talked about the defense a little bit. Let's discuss the offense a little bit more, especially with no George and Embiid. What's it going to look like? The surging Suns. Unexpected. Great job by the head coach and the players, and we'll get to our pregame picks. This pregame show, of course, is presented by Bet365. We'll come back. We'll get to all of that right here on the PHLY Sixers pregame show.
And guys, what if you could have reliable and intelligent Wi-Fi? And what if you could keep it at the same price for 5 years? That is the Xfinity 5-year price guarantee. Imagine Wi-Fi that makes everything in your home work together, that finds and fixes problems before you even notice them, like super intelligent Wi-Fi with a 6th sense, Haley Joel Osment style.
Oh.
And that lets you stream the game, even when the whole family's online. All your devices working in perfect harmony for 5 whole years. And here's the best part. No annual contracts, no hidden fees, and Xfinity's best equipment, it's all included. Take it from me, a lot can change in 5 years. Championships are won, records are broken, dreams grow bigger, but your Wi-Fi, that should stay reliable, and the price should stay put. So lock in your price and unlock the possibilities with Xfinity. Learn more at Xfinity.com. Xfinity, imagine that. Select plans apply. Select plans only. Restrictions apply.
Bet365, our presenting sponsor here on the pregame show. Whatever the moment's never ordinary at Bet365. We'll give our pregame picks a little bit later, hit on yesterday's pregame. So let's keep that streak running. Maybe the Sixers will do so as well. So if you're feeling good about your basketball team, despite 2 key players out for Philadelphia, Bet365 is the place for you to go. As we talk about often, 90 million users worldwide, 780,000 events live each year on the app, plus early payouts in the NBA and the NHL. And tonight, a couple of super profit boosts in the NBA, which is a super profit boost of 50% for you for any NBA game tonight. That's a really good one. And then the NHL, you got it at plus 30% as a profit boost for the NHL as well. So if you have not jumped in and you want to, I always hear about you guys talking about Bet365. Let me give it a try. Breaking news, not trade deadline. New customers, Bet365. You get $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's right, win or lose. You don't have to sweat and wonder, I just missed it by one leg of my parlay. Win or lose, they got you covered. All you have to do is sign up using code PHLY365 when you do sign up. And bonus bets can be used on spread, totals, player props, futures, Super Bowl, and more right there at Bet365. Whatever the moment's never ordinary at Bet365. Must be 21 plus, physically located in Pennsylvania. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER. Back here on the PHLY Sixers pregame. Sixers Suns in South Philly tonight. Second night of a back-to-back for both teams. Handling their business on Monday night. Two teams that won. The Suns right now 26-17. Sixers 23-18. We'll talk more about the Suns in just a moment. Let's get to Kyle Newbeck giving us a little bit of an update from the arena ahead of this important basketball game where the Sixers, well, this will be another really good win. Let's hear from Kyle.
One really interesting curveball that Nick Nurse threw at us tonight. Quentin Grimes has been struggling lately. Nick Nurse was asked, what's been going on there? What do you need to do to get him going? And he said one of the things they might consider to get him going, putting him back in the starting lineup.
I think that we really thought he was a much better player off the bench, that he liked to see the game a little bit and come in and play. And I think that we're having some discussions lately of maybe that's not the case, and maybe we start sticking him back in the starting lineup a little bit to see if that helps him.
See if anybody else wants to make cameos behind me tonight. So we'll have to wait and see whether Quentin Grimes is a potential starter tonight. If maybe that's something for when Joel Embiid and Paul George are both in the lineup, so they have some stability, solidity in the front line, but an interesting wrinkle nonetheless. Speaking of Paul George, he is questionable coming into tonight's game. He's going to warm up in a little bit here. It's about 85 minutes before tip-off, so by the time you see this, probably made a declaration on what he's doing or not doing. Nick Nurse said pregame he's been very happy with how Paul has fit in, stood out, adapted as they've needed to, and he's looking to continue growing the VJ Edgecombe, Paul George relationship. Those two have anchored second units. They're probably going to do that again tonight.
But I think it's just continuing to grow that, and it usually starts and we got something we're doing, and then obviously a team sees it and they try to take that away. So then now you got to shift sides of the floor. You got to shift from low to high, from going east to west or whatever. Just different, probably just another different little package that'll keep the same idea going if they do stuff that kind of takes the stuff away.
Anybody who hasn't watched this Phoenix Suns team this year, they have been way better than most people expected. They're well coached. They got a deep rotation. They're getting Jalen Green back tonight from injury. So we're going to have to see if the Sixers hold up well against them. Should be a fun one.
Kyle Newbeck live from the arena with a few updates. The Quentin Grimes thing is interesting. Who are you taking out of the starting lineup if that's the case?
Barlow. I mean, you can't take any of the other guys out, right?
No. But it feels like Barlow's being demoted for no reason. It's not his fault, basically.
No.
It's not his fault. Now, he's the one that's not going to make any noise. He's just going to go out there, lunch pail, do his job. So you're right with the player and the mentality of the player. But what would you think of that?
I think Grimes ideally would come off the bench when you look at, when Barlow is playing the 4 and you can slide Paul George at the 3, I think, especially considering your most important players, Maxey, VJ, Joel, PG, I think the best position to slide in with the 5th guy is somebody who can play power forward. And look, there's positional versatility there. You can play Paul at the 4. You could, when you play Kelly, which of those two guys is actually the 4? It doesn't matter. They're able to switch and do a bunch of wing type things. Grimes offers you some of that, I would say. He's not quite as big as those guys. But I think ideally, positionally, you have the 2 guards, and then you play Grimes as the 3rd guard off the bench. So it's interesting. I also wonder about Barlow, because Barlow is a guy that usually starts each half, but then he doesn't play a lot down the stretch of a lot of these games. So how does that affect his minutes? What does that do to Jabari Walker and the 4 rotation? I think there is an argument to play PG at the 4 more especially with VJ Edgecombe on those backup units. We talked about it last night. Some of those backup units with Bona and Kelly and Watford, like, it would be nice to slide Paul George into the front court because then you get a little bit more shooting. He's really the only guy who can play the 4 that also is like a very good 3-point shooter as well. So I don't know.
But he doesn't love playing the 4 either.
He doesn't. He said before the season that he was going to be willing to do it more, but that's a great point. In most of his career, I think ideally at this stage of his career, you'd like him to play a little bit of both, right? And I think you want stretches where you want Barlow in there. I mean, they play Barlow because they're a poor defensive rebounding team. Like, that's part of the reason you put him in. So I don't know. I think ideally Quentin Grimes would be coming off the bench when you look at just the Sixers rotation. It offers him a chance in good games to close as well. But I think you're also able to start Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe and then have somebody who can slide in really for either of those guys. But he's going to get the chance. And the good news, I guess, that Paul George is out tonight. He's going to start tonight. And maybe we'll see if that new role will do him some good.
Let's show the graphic that we have, Bree, for the offense from ALLCITY_NBA on Twitter. Make sure you go check it out. Adam Mars, Tim Legler on the ALLCITY NBA show. And it shows the difference here between Joel Embiid on the floor, Joel Embiid off the floor, something we also talked about post-game last night. Now, tonight, it's both George and Embiid, which we haven't seen it that way in quite some time because they've all been out there on the floor. That being said, on the top, it's when Embiid is not involved in the offensive play, and you look at how high they are in the NBA. On the bottom in the red, you see 76ers when Embiid is involved in the offensive play. And I don't mean, I said when he's not on the floor, I meant when he's not involved in the play versus when he is involved in the play. And I know it's been a source of discussion with Derek a lot on the show. You've talked about it often, and many people in the chat discuss how, hey, maybe the offense is slowing down a little bit. It's getting a little bogged down because they're running the ball through Joel Embiid. When you look at this chart from our family there at ALLCITY, the NBA podcast, what does this tell you? What do you see also when you watch these games?
I mean, I think we see it, right? And I think that's why after Joel has a rough game, the post-game chat is, we got to start playing a different way. We can't just accommodate Joel. This is ridiculous. Get the ball to the guards, speed it up.
Yeah,
and I understand that. It can get frustrating. I will say, the numbers say when Joel Embiid is on the court, Sixers are a good bit better offensively. So faster does not always mean better in that case. Look, there's got to be a balance, right? And it's a little bit tricky with the Sixers because they have these two guards that, especially when they play in a game like this, I assume hopefully the Sixers play a competitive game. Hopefully it's not too sloppy. When VJ Edgecombe and Tyrese Maxey play together, it could be electric when they're just by themselves and they're free and they're shooting every possession and they're playing off of each other. Like, I'm thinking like the first game in New York. I'm thinking like the first week of the season. It's more aesthetically pleasing basketball. I don't think anybody would argue that. And obviously, they're younger guys. And so I understand fans' frustration in that regard because they have a chance to develop into something greater than what we've seen right now. So there's always going to be a little bit of a balance. I will say that All NBA pod, they do tweet out some really interesting numbers and, some very nice charts to kind of show you, what's going on in the NBA, not just with the Sixers, but other teams. Look, that's stark, but it also matches up with what our eyes are telling us. I would say, though, Joel, better offensively with him on the court, so you got to try and find a way to make it work.
All right, so with that, they need to find a way to get it done on the court tonight. They have their all-star, they have their fantastic rookie, and they have others who can score the basketball. And they're going to need it tonight, Rich, against this surprising Suns team who is now on the season 26-17. They are just outside of the top 6 in the Western Conference, but they are tied for first in the Pacific Division with the Los Angeles Lakers. They are led by Devin Booker, who has played 39 games. It's no longer the big three that Rich mentioned last night with Beal, Durant, and Booker. It's Booker and everybody else. But they do have 7 players in double figures. Jalen Green doesn't count. He's only really played 2, so I'll just say 6.
They haven't had him.
He's back in the lineup tonight, coming off the bench. This team is fun. Jordan Ott, fantastic job, come from Cleveland. I wasn't sure, but I watch a lot of the PHNX Suns podcast, and with Espo and all those guys, Eric and Steph, and they do a great job. And this team, man, I don't know, came out of nowhere. And everybody's available tonight. So this is not going to be an easy one for the Sixers.
No. Look, I think the Suns, and I think those guys would admit, their ownership probably fell ass backwards into how the modern NBA game is played. They were chasing all of the older stars, the scorers, the bucket getters that don't really match together. And so they had to trade Bradley Beal and Kevin Durant for players that are worse than them, for sure. But they traded them for Dillon Brooks. Jalen Green hasn't played a lot. And they got more depth, man. They play hard, and that's what a lot of regular season NBA basketball is about. It's why the Sixers are better this year than last year. It's not just that Joel Embiid is playing. It's not just that Paul George is playing. They have more depth. They have more guys that you can throw out there that on a night where maybe Kelly Oubre or Quentin Grimes doesn't have it, you throw Jabari Walker in the game and say, cause some chaos. Let's see what happens. That's what this Suns team does. They have guys like, who's the perfect example of this guy? It's a hard name to say. Iguodaro, the guy from Marquette.
Yep.
Some nights he doesn't really score a lot, but he's a guy who switches 1 through 5.
He's like 6'11", 7 feet, but he doesn't look it. He's just real active, man.
And he plays hard.
Yes.
He switches, and they have a ton.
Him and Ryan Dunn. Both of them.
Ryan Dunn is another one, a great defensive player. They just have a lot of these guys that play hard, and Jordan Ott deserves a lot of credit. But it's just so funny that they went after and they mortgaged their future for this blueprint of a team that had no chance of succeeding.
New owner syndrome.
Awful, and that's going to hurt them for years. But because they took their medicine and made the right trades, they're not going to be a contender for a little while, but they're a damn good regular season team this year. And I would argue the best story in the NBA. I mean, they are, 26 and 17 on the year with a point differential that says they're not getting that lucky on that end of the court. It's been a lot of fun to watch, but they stumbled into it, man. The NBA right now, a lot of it is about the weak link and it's about depth. And if you have a bunch of guys that you can play, you can compete in a lot of these games. Oklahoma City is the best example of this, and they combine it with star power and versatility with all of that depth. That's why they're a great team. But Phoenix stumbled on a formula. I don't think they realized what they were doing. I think they just had to make those trades after the KD era had run its course. But it's a great story, and the new coach is doing well.
I do wonder what it would have looked like with Jalen Green for the entire time.
Me too.
I do wonder that. Because sometimes he can hijack the offense a little bit. It can be a little frustrating, but now he comes back in and he just goes into a role where he has to ease himself back in because of the injury. And I'm very curious. Before we get to our picks, man, I do want to ask you, because with this great story, there are great stories for individuals, and one of them being where I know I talked to the guys in Denver, specifically Adam Mares at one point. I know in Phoenix, I talked to Saul about him and Espo when I had a chance to speak with them, whether in person or all. And I would talk to them about, hey, guys, I'm not coaching. I'm not the GM, but Collin Gillespie is good. He is a good basketball player. And man, has he gotten the opportunity finally, and he has found a starting role. He has started 24 games for them, played all 43. He's averaging 13, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, 1 steal, and he's shooting from 3 on 7 attempts a night, 42%. We all knew he could shoot, and we know he could score from his high school days and certainly at Villanova. But man, I'm so happy for him to get this opportunity.
That era of Villanova basketball, which you know very well, all those guys were underdrafted to a degree. Even the lottery picks, man. Jalen Brunson, underdrafted. Mikal, underdrafted. Collin Gillespie, who I believe was undrafted. He
was undrafted.
So he was very underdrafted because I didn't think he was
Josh went 30th.
Yeah.
Again. Yeah. Dante went 18, 19.
All of these guys outperforming their draft slots to a degree, and Gillespie is probably the last of that group with that Final Four run a couple of years ago. Did I think he was going to be this level of player in the pros? No. I didn't think so, and I'm somebody who roots for him, number one, because he played in my high school basketball league, and I always root for those guys. And he's a local guy. And two, I just liked his game at Villanova. I just thought he's just like a tough kid that really got a lot out of his game. And I do wonder, playing against Jalen Brunson for, I don't know, was it just 1 year with Brunson maybe for? He
was
played
there.
on the national championship
He was there
team.
1 year with when they won in 18. Phil Booth came back the next year, so Phil Booth was a 4-year player, and so just a tough player. And he got a lot of run. Sadiq was there.
And then
you had Whitmore there.
And then he takes the controls for the next few years.
Yeah, so there was talent to go against. He was going against pros.
I saw on Twitter Jalen Brunson talk about, after the Suns beat the Knicks a few weeks ago, just how proud
days ago.
How proud he was of well, they beat him again. And
It was
his first time in Phoenix.
Yeah.
And he talked about, man, I'm just like really proud of this guy. Like, this is a guy who, you know, I was the best player, but sort of like I learned from Arch. He took over from me, and he's just worked himself into a very good player, and he's going to get a nice contract. So again, like they just
happy
hit.
For him.
It's not just that they hit on those trades and they got deeper. They hit on kind of the depth moves, and you get Collin Gillespie, a guy who's clearly a rotation level guard in the NBA, and a guy that's going to get a nice contract here.
Yeah. Hope. I know he signed a 1-year deal. I don't think he signed a 2. I know he signed 1. So he's definitely going to get paid this summer. Happy for him. All right, let's get to our pregame picks that are presented by Bet365. Whatever the moment's never ordinary at Bet365. Coming off a win last night. Unfortunately, Bree, it wasn't her fault. I think it was 1-3 from Nemhard that he did. He didn't take a lot, so he kind of did he? I thought you had 2. You did? I thought he had 1. Maybe I'm wrong. All right. I need to shut my mouth on that.
I can look it up.
All right, that's it. Let's see what we have here tonight for the Bet365 picks. He had 2?
He had
Perfect. Bree, we hit yesterday.
hit
Let's get to what we're going to hit on tonight. Bree is going with Booker. Hitting for a nice number tonight. Andre Drummond, 7+ rebounds. So the 25 for Booker. I went with Maxey. The thievery. 1.5 steals. Gotta keep it going. You're hot. You go get it. And Collin Gillespie, 2+ threes made tonight. Mine is a +135. Bree is at a +165 there at Bet365. You want to combine those, you get a 50% super profit boost at Bet365. Go play that right now. If you haven't signed up yet, use code PHLY365 at Bet365. Become a member. 90 million users worldwide. Let's get after it. All right, that'll do it for us, everybody. 10 minutes after the game goes final, we're back here for the PHLY Sixers postgame show. Are we talking about a win? Or are we talking about an L with this shorthanded team? Bree is saying yes, a W. Well, how about you? We'll discuss it later on after the game. For Bree, Kyle, Derek, and Rich, I'm Devon. We'll see you all after the game. 10 minutes after the game goes final right here on the PHLY Sixers postgame show. Enjoy.
We all silly like the mayor.